Our first topic is the National Assessment of Educational Progress, sometimes called NAEP, that was released in April by the U.S. Department of Education and the Nevada Department of Education. It's known as the nation's report card. 147 CCSD schools took part in the testing, including West Prep Academy.
Our biggest number is 6. Let's go ahead and go up to 7.
Inside Ms. Dunn's 6th grade math class at West Prep Academy, students are focused and their progress is tracked.
This is our evaluate data wall, and I have 3 classes, our blocks. So we chart their growth as a class.
Testing and evaluating is common practice at West Prep.
Teachers need to know what's going on in the classroom, how they're building their instruction, where their gaps are, so they can fill them and make corrections in real time.
But assessing how students are doing here is not limited to the school walls. West Prep Academy was one of thousands of schools across the country that took part in testing for the nation's report card, which is the largest ongoing assessment of what U.S. students know and can do. The assessment targets 4th and 8th grade students and their understanding of reading and math. The tests are taken every 2 years. Compared to other large urban school districts, CCSD ranked 13th of 27 in 4th grade reading proficiency, 12 of 27 in 8th grade reading proficiency, 16th of 27 in 4th grade math proficiency, and 12th of 27 in 8th grade math proficiency.
I think we've done all 5 data displays.
Back at West Prep, teacher Tracy Dunn believes the 2 subjects go hand in hand.
Well, to improve math scores, you have to improve reading scores. No subject is isolated. I teach a lot of reading in my class, do a lot of marking of the text. I teach critical reading in my math class. So we break down the words, if it's just the directions. What's my verb? So we talk about parts of speech in math class. So reading is crucial to being successful in math.
Again, West Prep Academy was one of 147 CCSD schools that took part in the testing. Dr. Barton, I'd like to start with you. If memory serves me, you were principal at West Prep some time ago, weren't you?
For 5.5 years, yes.
Okay, wonderful. Just wanted to put that out there. Let's talk about NAEP. Why test 4th and 8th graders as opposed to some other grades, 2nd and 6th, something like that? Why those 2 grades?
So historically, this is a test that's been sponsored by the U.S. Department of Education. Looking at the curriculum, I think there's alignment with what skills should be mastered by 4th grade and 8th grade level. The question as far as 2nd grade and 6th grade, there are still concepts that are missing in the learning. So 4th and 8th grade are really the grade levels that are looked at and compared nationally. It's the nation's report card. We get to the population of students who test by a random sampling. So we had a record number of schools who participated in the NAEP assessment this year. But again, to determine the schools and also the students at the 4th and 8th grade level, it is a complete random sampling that's done actually by the NAEP people.
Okay. I know that 3rd grade is really important when it comes to reading, the read by 3, that sort of thing. So I understand that reading and math proficiency you want to test after that, but I was just kind of curious about that. Let's talk about the 147 schools that were chosen within the Clark County School District. How are those schools chosen?
Yeah, so again, it's a random sampling as far as schools. And then we have a new program that we're being compared to other large urban districts.
Okay.
So while the NAEP is a mechanism to compare Nevada to the rest of the country, state by state, also with these schools that participated with those particular grade levels, this gives us an opportunity where we have baseline data now comparing our performance as the Clark County School District compared to other large urban districts like New York City, right, Baltimore City, Miami. So we're being compared now with other school districts that are similar in size, if not larger than the Clark County School District.
And that's referred to as the Trial Urban District Assessment.
That's correct.
Is this something new? Or
it's been around. I'm sorry, Mitch, to cut you off,
go
but
ahead.
I think it's something that's been around historically where schools that are in the Council of the Great City Schools, they've had this as a mechanism, again, to compare their performance with other districts nationally. This is the first year that the Clark County School District was able to participate in TUDA. It's a benchmark year, and what we'll be able to do now is compare our performance from year to year as we participate in TUDA.
Okay. Trustee Brooks, how do you think, when you look at the report card, what do you think about how the district did their performance, proficiency, math, and reading, I believe.
So I think it's pretty spectacular that we perform as well as we do, considering that we are funded at much lower levels. So I think that speaks volumes to how well we perform and how well we do more with less.
Right, right. I know that's probably an issue for you, Dr. Young, as well, because that's one thing that probably comes out in this study for the urban districts, how much they spend. What is the per pupil spending in the district?
Well, we're $8,254.
Okay.
Compared to New York, it's a little under $22,000. Baltimore is a little under, I think, $15,000. And so, you know, many of those larger school districts and the TUDA part of the program, I think it's a good way to gauge what's happening in your large urban districts, but also looking at the funding mechanism, looking at how large districts work either within the resources of what they have or how they gain additional resources. So I think it's a good step where we're moving with this. I think the most important part of this process that I'm appreciative of is that the Clark County School District has often been labeled as ineffective, inefficient, that we don't compare nationally. And the TUDA component of this, as Dr. Barton has indicated, gives a benchmark, but it also gives a nice comparison with apples to apples and oranges to oranges. And oftentimes we're compared to, as an urban district, and although we do have rural,
Right.
But we're often compared to schools that are not like our demographics and our what I call our structure and within our communities.
So
and
when you
various
look at the
programs.
assessment, do you feel like the district represents well?
I do. I think so. I know we have, none of us are satisfied. We know we can and will do better, but we do feel that we've got to get the facts correct. And if you use the word reform, R-E-F-O-R-M, we're talking about results in education with the right facts in terms of the opportunity and the resources and kind of the movement that's going on. That's my acronym for reform.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And when we talk about TUDA, that is the Trial Urban District Assessment, just so everyone
Exactly.
knows there. Dr. Barton, so looking at the results, CCSD, I think overall came in kind of in the middle of the pack. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Right, so I think I want to reiterate what Dr. Young said. We know we have a lot of work to do. We know we need to continue to increase proficiency for all of our students, but when you compare our results with the other large urban districts testing in the TUDA cohort, we were outperforming, if not at the same level, with many of these other districts. That doesn't mean that we're where we need to be as far as proficiency, but I think to return to Trustee Brooks' point, it's showing that we have a solid ROI or return on investment compared to those drastic differences in per pupil expenditure. And I also want to reiterate another point that sometimes these unfair labels on the Clark County School District are certainly not fair 100%, because sometimes it's painted that we're on the NAEP last in the nation. While we know we have a lot of work to do, we know that when you think about complexities and students with some of those at-risk obstacles that they come in with, and you run that in a way compared to the other states, we're actually in the middle compared with those complexities. We're not dead last. So these unfair labels sometimes, we need to shed those. And I know that we'll continue to work hard, our teachers will work hard, but sometimes this data gets presented in a way where it's just not accurate.
Right. It's a lot of information to encapsulate, and sometimes it's simpled down in some ways, and it's just, it doesn't, you're right, it doesn't always reflect the reality. So it seems like there's a lot of, so on the issue that you've all brought up, funding,
Yes.
where does that stand? What's next there?
Well, and you bring up the important elephant in the room.
Yeah.
We have to get the funding to match the needs of what we have for our students, our schools, our teachers, our community. And when you look at our funding compared to a lot of our urban schools, and just take the top five, you got New York, Baltimore, Chicago, Milwaukee, and Shelby County, they're all significantly above what our funding is for our students.
In some cases, double.
Double digits. And then, and I agree with Dr. Barton wholeheartedly, we're labeled unfairly. And our teachers are kind of put down in some ways too. And we feel that's not only not fair, it's inaccurate. It's just out and out wrong. Do we need to improve? Don't send us an email. We know we do.
Right.
But we're going to ask the whole community, our parents, our churches, our businesses, all of us to circle the wagons and lift up the boat, because the rising tide lifts up all boats.
Okay. So parents that are going to be hearing about NAEP, hearing about where the district stands, Trustee Brooks, what do you want the parents to keep in mind? Besides the funding issue, because I think we've talked about that, but are there other things you want them to know or keep in mind about these results?
I think it's very important that people understand the context. A lot of times when we're labeled as the lowest performing, we're comparing ourselves to communities that don't have the same needs and they don't have the same diversity in the population. So we're not doing as bad as the media would make it out to be. We have some work to do. We're definitely going to get better, and I look forward to doing that.
Okay. Final thoughts, briefly, Dr. Barton, on NAEP?
I think this is a tribute to our teachers. I think those that are closest to the work, working with students on a daily basis at any grade level, whether it's that kindergarten teacher working up to that 4th grade where they're assessed, or that 6th grade teacher working up to that 8th grade mastery, our people are working very, very hard.
All right. Appreciate everyone's time here today.
Okay.